of Red, White, and Blue. Please don't adjust your TV sets. I am not Gary Polland. I'm your guest host for today, Jay Aiyer. And I've got a great co-host, Dallas Jones. Welcome, Dallas.
Hi. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Well, Dallas, we got a great show today. We're going to be talking about Harvey and housing and the state of the recovery. And we've got two incredible people that are going to help us with this process and tell us what's going on at the county and the city. To my immediate right, Daphne Lemelle, who's a Community Development Director for the Harris County Services Department. And our good friend Tom McCastland, who's been on the show many a time, the Director of Housing and Community Development for the City of Houston. Daphne, Tom, welcome.
Great to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, let's start with you, Daphne. Kind of tell us what's the state of that? You've got some money now from sort of approved, a little under $1 billion. Kind of what's happening? What's your plan? Kind of moving forward to get us back up and running.
Yes, Jay. Just yesterday, Harris County Commissioners Court approved our contract with the Texas General Land Office, just under $1 billion for our housing programs and our planning dollars. So we have 6 housing programs we're rolling out. The first being those helping our homeowners. We have a lot of homeowners out there who are still struggling, have not recovered, and so we're looking to help rebuild and repair a lot of houses out there. Also helping to reimburse some folks who spent their out-of-pocket dollars to repair their homes and couldn't wait, because as you know, we're going into our second year almost since Harvey hit. So looking forward to ramping up all of those programs and just helping a lot of people.
When does that start for you? When do you start getting shovels in the ground?
So actually, we have an application portal that's been online actually ever since October 2017. And so folks can go online at harrisrecovery.org and sign up today if they have unmet needs, and we're processing those applications. We hope to have, we will have our vendor who will be doing our outreach and intake across the county online next month. And that will really be where we're out in the community working one-on-one with everybody, making sure we're getting all their information and processing their claims for them.
So it's been some time since the storm, and I think a lot of people have heard a lot of dollar figures thrown around in terms of money that has been allocated, whether it's for housing or infrastructure, and so it's great that the contract has been approved. We talk a lot in the clouds for the people that are watching that are waiting and have been waiting. I myself lost my home to the storm. That have been waiting. What does that mean in terms of when they can realistically expect to receive aid and or assistance, and what does that really look like? So when you talk about the housing program for homeowners, or the program for homeowners, I think a lot of people are still confused about what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to come in and fix their house? Does that mean you're going to give them money? What does it mean for them?
Well, for the county, what that means is that if you still have repairs that need to be done, or your house needs to be completely rebuilt, we will actually come in, do an assessment, and rebuild and repair your house. We're doing it with contractors. We're coming in, assessing, and helping you do that. And we're making sure your house is going to be decent, safe, sanitary, and rebuilt. And if you need elevation, because your home needs to be elevated up to the current standards, we're going to do that too. Our elevation, though, will only be combined with reconstruction. In other words, to get an elevated house, we're going to rebuild your home because the cost of elevation alone is just, in our opinion at the county, just not a great use of funds. However, we do understand certain homeowners want to elevate their existing structures, but we're trying to use the money as wisely as possible to serve as many people as possible.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom, you want to chime in on this? To answer Dallas' question, and also give us kind of a rundown of what's going on with the city right now.
Certainly. So similar to the county, we signed the contract with the state January 4th. 10 days later, we had 4 housing resource centers open where people can come by, fill out surveys, and start letting us know what their needs are. To date, we've received 3,500 surveys across the city. And to Dallas, to your point, if you're a homeowner, 3 paths of recovery. One, similar to the county, where we'll come in and do repairs, oversee the construction. But if you're already under contract, and many homeowners are, they've started the repairs, they have a contractor they want to work with, that's an option forward as well. And then if you're done with your repairs, again, similar to the county, an option for reimbursement. What we've recognized at the city, and I assume similar to the county, we don't have enough money to go around. We expect that a full recovery inside the city is closer to $3 billion. Once we get the money that we currently have eyes on right now in, it's right about $1.3 billion inside the city for housing. So we're prioritizing worst first, and we're prioritizing folks that are completely done. And so if you're already done with your repairs and just need a reimbursement, that's an easy processing. We come out, we inspect. If you're higher income, you're going to get 50% or 25% reimbursed starting off. And then if you're lower income and you're senior, disabled, children, some of our most vulnerable residents in terms of income, we're going to be prioritizing you first and getting your repairs done. And right now we're starting to process 455 applications. 100% of those are seniors, have both seniors and disabled individuals in the household.
And that was going to be my follow-up question to you, because again, this is important information for the people in our area. This sounds amazing. Who? If I have a who can qualify to get their house rebuilt and elevated? So if I have a $600,000 house, can I get my house rebuilt and elevated? If I have a $60,000 house, can I get my house rebuilt and elevated? Does everybody get their houses rebuilt and elevated? Who qualifies?
And so the answer is no, not everyone is going to qualify for
So
everything.
I can't get my house fixed.
Potentially. so
Use the 600.
So one of the things we recognize is because we don't have enough, we are going to focus on the most vulnerable first. And so 80% of our funds are going to go towards people who are at 80% area median income or less. And for a family of four, that's under $60,000 in our area. But we do recognize that Harvey was a storm that did not discriminate. It hit people in $600,000 homes and $60,000 homes. And so through our reimbursement program, we have not put a cap on the upper limits. 120% area median income and up, you can still apply. We'll still cut you a check, but we're going to cut it for 25% of your gap, the money that you paid out of pocket, not counting insurance, not counting those other things. We'll still pay you 25% of your gap up to $80,000. So even if you're in one of those $600,000 homes, possibility for a $20,000 check. But if you're in those lower income homes, we're wanting to get you 100% reimbursed.
And for the county, we're slightly different. We're a little more flexible. We didn't necessarily, we are having targets to meet within the income ranges based on our needs assessment of who was affected. But we did not necessarily limit the percentage at a higher income or a higher valued home could qualify. So basically the $50,000 will be eligible on a first come first serve, obviously making sure we're meeting our income limits within the target. So those more vulnerable households, very low income households that earn less than 30% of the area median, they will be prioritized, but that doesn't disqualify anybody.
Daphne, you're dealing with homes that are essentially outside the city limits but in the county. Tom, you're dealing with it just in the city but not, just within the city of Houston. How many homes are we talking about in the city and how many homes are we talking about in the county? And let's talk about buybacks as well, because what we don't want is a situation where we're building, repairing homes that are going to be flooded on an annual basis.
That's right.
So let's talk about both those things.
Yeah. So for the county, we're partnering with the Harris County Flood Control District to do buyouts. And in those buyout areas, we are going to be working with those homeowners to find replacement housing outside the floodplain. As far as our home repair and rebuild program that are outside the buyout areas, we are also looking at improving the drainage in those communities. And we're looking at elevation as a mitigating factor to ensure that those homes do not flood again. So we're taking a two-pronged approach here. We're going to be working in those communities, helping those homeowners repair, but we're also going to address the local drainage local flooding that's happened in those communities. So the investments we're making in housing don't go and get flooded again. So we're looking at that in a two-pronged approach. We know we won't be able to do that. The money will only go so far, right? And so, but we want to put that in the book. So even if the recovery funding runs out, we know we have a plan forward to help these communities and to reduce and mitigate that flooding on a future basis.
Well, you triggered another part of my brain here, and probably another hat I wear. In terms of the buyouts and targeting the specific areas in the floodplain. Now, Harvey was a bit unusual because we flooded in places we didn't expect to, and pretty much we flooded everywhere. But in those areas where you're doing buyouts, and you're looking at entire communities, doesn't this have an effect on some of our more traditional historic communities? My house flooded in my land, right on South Braeswood. Traditionally, historically Jewish community. What does that mean? And I know there's been some kickback from this community because they want to They don't want to sell back their homes. They want to not flood through drainage improvement. How do you manage the buyback program without destroying some of the historical parts of our city?
Well, I'll let Tom answer for the city, but out in the county, one of the things that we're doing is part of our programming and the funding we're getting is looking at new development, new construction of affordable housing. And so we plan to tie that new development into communities, near communities where there are buyout areas, to allow those communities to stay within their home communities, near their areas of service and amenities and their friends, their churches. We understand that. So we're doing a very deliberate approach and planned approach and looking at, if we're taking out 100 homes in this community that's been here for more than 50 years, how are we making sure they're still connected to the larger community that they're part of and where they've lived most of their lives? So we're looking at putting in new development near there, not in the buyout area, but more resilient housing in their communities, their home communities, to make sure they're staying in their community. Tom?
It's a terrific question, Dallas, and one of the things that we're focused on is similar to them, making sure that people are not staying in the floodway. There's floodway, 100-year floodplain, 500-year floodplain, outside the floodplain. And we have homes that are in the floodway. We have apartment complexes that are in the floodway, and that has to be our highest priority, is to get those homes moved out. When they're in the 100-year floodplain, our goal is to limit the building there, and if we're rebuilding there, to make sure that we're building up and out of harm's way. So we have a requirement that everything is going up on pier and beam, no slab on grade, unless there's an absolute necessity for it to be on slab on grade, which gets people out of harm's way. But then when we do have to move, giving that household the choice of whether they're wanting to move close by and helping them transition there. We're working with the Houston Land Bank that is doing acquisitions for us for new developments, and we have $200 million set aside for new developments in places that are outside of these flood-prone areas. And so making sure that there are options. One of the things we do not want to do for the folks who are being bought out is hand them a $60,000, $70,000, or even $90,000 check and wish them good luck in replacing that home, because no homes are selling for that level, even if the buyout is that level. So making sure that when they get that buyout, and we work with Harris County Flood Control as well, sent them $10 million weeks after Harvey in terms of getting some buyouts started. When that happens, making sure that they have the resources to land on their feet in a new home that they can afford.
How many houses in the city were affected by this, and how many do you expect to be, to Dallas's point, use the buyout provision?
So it depends on how you count, and there are numbers all over the board on this. And affected goes from everything that we got a little bit of rain in our home to we had 6 feet of water in our home. In terms of where this money is going to go, it is the gap money coming in, and we haven't said that yet, but HUD's money coming in is to fill in the gap that FEMA leaves and insurance leaves afterwards. There's a little bit of help that nonprofits assist, but it is what is left after all of those monies have been expended. We anticipate that we have the resources to serve upwards of 10,000 households. Now, the big variable there, and that's almost half the numbers, is whether or not 4,000, 4,500 of those households are going to be reimbursement, and whether or not they can come in and get reimbursed. We have the resources to fund them. The question is, will enough of them be there given all the HUD bureaucracy?
Well, I just wanted to add, and for the county, our numbers are even lower. You know, if we look at the max assistance we can provide across our programs, the most we can serve at the maximum would be 4,500. We expect to exceed that because we know not everyone's going to get the max. But again, with what Tom is saying is we don't have enough to help everybody, and so we're going to have to be very strategic and make sure we're reaching those folks.
And that's using both tranches of money, or just
that's just the first tranche.
Just for the first tranche, right?
Yeah.
And so it's 10,000 that you think would be the highest maximum amount, but how many were flooded? Do we have any sense?
Again, we've looked at numbers, and if I could confidently say that I've got the magic number for you, I'd give it.
I'm willing to put out there on the table that the numbers go everywhere out in the county. 30,000 we know were inspected and determined flooded, right? Significantly flooded. But I know in the city, if we include the city and we look at estimates and other models for those that did not get counted or FEMA undercounted or didn't serve, it could go as high as 120,000 homes that were affected. So that's what Tom is speaking to, the
I
range.
want to stay with the money because I think we all have a sense of responsibility. So I'm fresh out of the state capitol. The legislature has convened, and they're busy working in Austin. There is talk about the use of the Economic Stabilization Fund, also known as the Rainy Day Fund. They're finally talking about tapping into that a little bit. And Harvey is, the result of Harvey, the aftermath of Harvey, which not only affected Houston, Harris County, but across the coast. There's been a lot of talk about use of that fund to help fill in the gaps, Tom, as you stated. Are you all pursuing that? Is there an active effort to really try to get some of those resources on the ground so that more people can be helped?
Well, what I know is our legislative team at the county is working on using that fund for, if we can tap into it today to help meet more of the Harvey damage, of course. But I know what we're looking at is using that fund to set it up because we know this won't be the last disaster we have. We need that fund to be there and ready to respond in the case of another disaster. Because had we had those funds right after Harvey, we could have done more buyouts and relocated folks to where they needed to go. We could already have built and repaired a lot more houses than what we see today.
And one of the important things that as local jurisdictions we face are federal funds that come in with a matching requirement. And this is a perfect opportunity for local funds to serve as that local match. Sometimes you get 80% from the government, but you can't spend that 80% if you don't have that 20% match or the 10% match. So the state has an opportunity to step forward. Fortunately, we work in the area of housing where the federal funds that come to us don't require that match, so this is a little out of my lane. But in addition to that, one of the things that we need the state as a partner is for the state to make sure that the agencies that touch our housing work are fully funded and staffed up. So to give you a local example, I'm going to my permitting department saying you've got to hire X number of people to keep our permits moving. Going to the controller's office, to the legal department. Internally making sure that we're staffed up. One of the things that both Daphne's team and our team will do is be sending out homes up to the Texas Historical Commission. The state's going to be doing the same thing because every home touched by federal funds will have to go through this commission. If they are not properly staffed up, that's going to be a huge bottleneck for all three of us. And it's a small thing, but making sure that those state agencies are aligned with us, ready to move, so that as we start putting large amounts of homes into the repair process, they don't get stuck in Austin.
You're on the clock, both of you guys, right? We've got a 6-year time limit to get all this money spent. It's been pretty widely reported that there was quite a bit of money from Ike that didn't get spent on a timely basis. About $100 million just got left on the table. Folks, I think, want to know that the money is going to be used and help the people most in need. What's the process for you from a capacity perspective to try to get these projects out as quickly as possible? And I know that's been widely talked about the procurement process, and there's been some criticism about that. So if you could, talk a little bit about the timing, what you expect in terms of getting things out, getting things spent, and let's unfortunately talk a moment or two about how the contracts get selected.
Let me take up that Ike issue first, because the paper today had a terrific quote from the Assistant Secretary at HUD at the time who was involved with getting those funds started. And what was different for both the county and the city under Ike was we were not in control of our own funds. Someone else controlled our destiny, getting the funds started, sitting on them. All of the processes that Daphne and I have been involved with over the last year and a half were tied up by some other agency. This go around, we went side by side to DC and said we want to be in control of our funds. We are here today, and from day one we're able to move this process forward. And so we are in a very different position, having designed our programs, having worked with our own residents to see where those funds should go, and being able to kick this off. 2.5 years ago when I got here, there was still $130 million of funds from Ike. That have now mostly been spent. We'll have our infrastructure dollars spent at the end of this year, and the rest of our housing dollars we're anticipating to have spent by the end of this first quarter. That's a short period of time, but that gives you a sense of how quickly you can spend these funds when you control it. And so I just give you that as a little bit of historical, and it's not me, it's the HUD Assistant Secretary who indicated this point. And so when we control our destiny, we can be held accountable for those tight timelines, and I expect to be.
And the timeline has already started, as you mentioned. June of last year, when the state signed the contract with HUD, unfortunately, because we were not a part of the state's action plan to begin with what Tom just mentioned, we had to go to D.C. and advocate for. We are losing time. And so hopefully on the second tranche of funding that's coming, we can be with the state up front as part of the action plan, and that window will close. But also, we do have a local action plan. I am very confident we'll meet our spending timelines, and we'll be on top of that. We'll have to be, because we can't afford to let any of this money go back.
Tom, procurement. I know it's been talked about a lot, and sort of how some of these contracts get vetted, the selection process.
You actually already asked that question. They didn't answer it. I don't know if anybody else caught that, but I did.
So
for the sake of time.
For the sake of time.
Same question.
Same day. We'll give another go at it. Tom, you want to talk about that?
Procurement is something that is essential under these funds. One of the things I think we both recognize, I normally in a given year get about $40 million from the federal government. I don't know what your annual...
About $20 million.
$20 million as compared to 1.3 and nearly $1 billion for housing that's coming in. So
big numbers.
We cannot do this with our own staff. We have to go out and procure. And you do this normally, but we are deep into procurement. Today we just approved a pool of 6 contractors who are actually going to be out there managing and doing the construction work. These are all under the federal requirements, thoroughly vetted by our attorneys, and so there's a lot of scrutiny, and there should be scrutiny. One of the things I will not run away from is people asking the tough questions. For the contract today, we first presented this back in November. We've been giving city council member updates, and over the last couple of weeks continue to give them updates as we finalized who that pool of contractors were going to be. This is a process that we're moving through, and we'll continue to keep that public transparency there, because it's not only who we procure, but it's how we manage them for the next 5 years that will ensure whether or not we meet these timelines with the quality work that's needed.
Now, in the vendors selected, is there, I mean, because you're talking about fixing a large number of homes. I mean, either that's going to move really slowly with 6 vendors, but I understand they're construction managers, right? And so that means that there will be contractors under them.
Yes.
Completing the homes. How are these? Is there a standard where these contractors that are actually going to be working with the individual, citizen on their homes, that they are selected? Is that left up to the construction managers? And then my second part of that question is, do the construction managers? Is there provision to consider small and minority businesses and people from within the community to do the work of helping to rebuild with their neighbors that may need the work?
Absolutely. Let me take that last question first. We have MWBEs, minority, women, business, small business owned entities that are prioritized in the city procurement. We cannot prioritize local firms because these are federal funds, and we're not allowed to do that. But we can prioritize these other firms, and more than $134 million of the $400 million in the contracts let today is going to these smaller firms, women, minority-owned firms, and we're proud of that. Many of them are local firms, and we want this to be going back. The other thing that we're doing, and we're having these, in fact, later this afternoon I'm having these conversations, is ensuring that the low-income workers are getting jobs, and not just jobs, but career training. That they're getting the OSHA training so the jobs are safe, that these jobs are truly employment jobs so that they're not 1099 contract jobs, but they're actually getting treated as an employee, and then that they're getting the training they need to make this a career and to step up.
And a fair wage.
Yes, absolutely.
Daphne, in the county, you have a similar system?
We do. Unlike the city, the county, we do not have a minority business program like the city does, but we do, per the federal requirements, are required to hire minority and women-owned businesses, and we manage and monitor that. We have not yet gotten to the process of selecting our contractors. That will be happening. It's underway, but that won't be on court or for approval till later in February. But yeah, that will be a requirement, and that is part of the procurement, is that they identify for us how many low-income workers that they'll be hiring, as well as how many minority and women-owned businesses are a part of that. And that'll be part of the selection criteria as we award these contracts. Going back to your question about how do homeowners work with these contractors. We, within our program, will have case managers that are there to work with the homeowners to deal with any issues regarding the contractor and the homeowner. When we also have an independent construction and inspection firm that we already have under contract as a third-party inspection to ensure that the work being prepared by the contractors are meeting quality, and if not, they're held accountable to those standards.
It's the same for boat city and
very similar process. And one of the things that we've also done is focused on the technology. You can't do this work at this level without good technology. And what I've said from day one is just like when you order pizza, you can see when the order goes in, when it's being made, when it's on the way. We're going to have this similar interface where people have their own portal. They can sign into their own account, see when the application goes in, know what's missing, what their next steps are, see when the work is about to begin, and know when their finished home is going to be delivered.
Tom, Daphne, thank you so much. We could keep talking about this
Absolutely.
for
I've had so
days.
many more questions.
I know, but this has been a wonderful show. Thank you so much for the work you do, and we're all excited to hopefully see some homes that get built and recover from Harvey. Dallas, this is great, man. We should do this more often.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
All right.
Thank
you guys. Thank you for joining us on Red, White, and Blue, and we will be back next week as well. Thank you.